Micron had, we're going to kind of do a double here on Micron because the company had earnings and the company also had some news this week. And I have a frozen computer here, so I got to pull up a couple numbers real quickly here. But here's the long and short of the Micron result. The numbers themselves had growth. They had 38% growth on earnings, sales growth of 16%. Stock went down. You heard me say this earlier. I'm going to say it again. The market sucks. Okay, the market is extraordinarily bearish on all fronts. Commodities are down. Inflation is high. Oil and gas is high. Equities are down almost across the board. Company valuations are down. Assets like homes are losing value. There's really not a lot of good in the markets. Just to be very clear, Micron's results are actually very good. So, the growth of revenue. But here's the long and short. The Sanjay Mehrotra came out and basically said the forecast for smartphones was wrong. We had a 5% growth forecast in 2022. He's now predicting a 5% decline in smartphone sales. How do they know that? Well, they sell core memory that's critical to building a smartphone, and they're seeing the order flow, they're seeing the revenue flow, and therefore, effectively, their guidance went down. Their guidance is going down because they expect less. And then, Pat, on the other end, the PC guidance is even weaker. I think he was showing for a 10% decline. So the pandemic pulled forward a ton of purchasing for PCs, a ton of purchasing for smartphones and devices. And now with $7 gas and, outrageously high grocery prices, people are maybe not going to buy that phone they plan to buy right now. And so I said this a while ago. I'm going to do a victory lap real quickly, and I'm going to hand this over to you. I said the consumer discretionary will be the first of the tech areas to fall. I still think enterprise spend is going to be more robust. We'll see if I'm right. I'm not saying there won't be some cuts and some intelligent strategic moves in those areas, but companies that were consumers that were spending money like drunken sailors on new tech and buying multiple laptops and upgrading their phone every 6 months because they were getting stimulus money and free checks, and their crypto was worth a fortune, and their 401ks were out of control, and their homes were worth unbelievable amounts of money. And by the way, they hadn't been to work in a year. That money's gone. And the credit bubble is looming and booming, and it's going to be more complex. So Sanjay just basically shot a cannon out for the first time that says, some of these numbers are going to be bad. And really for tech, this is the first wave outside of some just bad performing companies where the outlooks are starting to look really a little bit at risk.
Yeah, listen, consumer is down, smartphones and PCs. And boy, this is one of the first looks at it. There has been talk about, where the market goes. Consumer, I think we saw in everybody's numbers, overall consumer was low. When you looked at HP and what Dell were doing in the PC space, it can be interesting to see what happens on the smartphone space. But the stimmy checks are likely been consumed, and there's not a whole lot of money left. And consumers, like you said, are very sensitive to their viewpoint. And I think when we look at consumers' biggest fears right now, in at least the political polls, it's inflation. It's the economy, dummy, right? And we said that for like 50 years. So consumers are concerned. They're starting to pull back a little, at least on high-priced white goods and electronics. So no surprise, and Micron is caught into it. The great thing, though, that came out of the Micron earnings was that their demand for data center just keeps going strong. And if you look at what's happening, at least from a product point of view, they're stellar. The next thing I want to talk about is some embedded announcements they did. So Micron's the number one memory provider to automotive, and primarily based on their quality and performance. But it's very cool. So they have the first with ASIL D on their automotive DDR5, and they're sampling just a ridiculously sized 1.5 terabyte micro SD piece of silicon. So that is absolutely gigantic, and typically between sampling and production, varying on the market between 6 months and a year. But you can imagine increasing the density by 4x to essentially store all that information that you and I are always talking about. So listen, challenging Micron short-term future with consumer. I'm very bullish on the company on a long-term basis, primarily based on its leadership in DDR5, but also the scaling that it's providing out there.